Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. My name is Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Keenan.
Heidi didn't know Superman had masonry vision.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and come on, Nuclear Man, trim those fingernails.
Oh, that's right, everybody. This week we are doing Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. We've covered many a Superman film on this here podcast, but we haven't done this. We haven't done Superman 2, so we're going to have to go back and do that at some point. But this one, I think, is special in so many different ways of the term special.
Oh, yeah.
So it's strap on, kids. It's going to be an exciting adventure. So first of all, I got to say this. This is, of course, listener appreciation.
I love it.
Listen, you keep your spoilers to the end, young man. This is going to be
I will not.
All right, fine then. All right, well, let's just stop the show first. Let's just quit. But here's what we're going to do. It is Patreon month over here, Listener Appreciation Month over on the HMP, and let me tell you, kids, it's going to be an exciting time, because not only do we have 5 full weeks in May, but one of those weeks, get this, one of our patrons will actually steer the ship HMP all by their lonesome. Just one person. They're going to say what we're going to watch, and then we're going to watch it, and it's still a little bit scary to me, I'm going to be honest.
But as long as it's not Rap Finka Boo Boo, we'll be okay.
That's always been trying to goal for that. So let's do this right at the top of the show here. I've got all the people. There are 24, I think, 23, 24 people that are out on our patreon.com/HMP supporting this show. So people from all levels. I've got the hat here. I don't know if we can. There we go. That's old-timey radio there. Yeah.
That's a sweet-sounding hat.
That's a hat full of names right there. This first week, and again, prizes the entire month of May. This first prize is going to be an HMP sticker set. So the people that do our T-shirts and stuff like that recently just came out and said, "Hey, we're doing stickers and stuff as well. We're going to get you a handful of stickers there that have a lot of the HMP logo and a couple of the other." Logos that we have and stuff going on. Kingpin as a posse, I want to see that someplace, in public. That would be amazing. So
hopefully at Shepard Ferry's house.
And make sure that he does not sue me. I combined 3 elements when I did that. So it's an homage, if anything.
Lawsuits all around.
But then again, I think a member of this show happens to know of that person, so I'll just leave it at that, and I don't think that I would, I think I'll be all right.
I think we're fine.
So let's dive into the old Patreon hat here and find out who is going to be the first recipient. Hat name pulled out. Oh, Epollonius, you are going to be the first recipient on the Patreon Month O Stars here, my friend. Why don't you just drop us an email, heremoviepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll get your address, send you out some stickers and all that kind of good stuff, man. So we really appreciate that. And it being the month of May and everything, like I said, we're just going to keep on going with this. And if you'd like to join the crew, guess what? There's still time. Just head on over to patreon.com/HMP. I believe next week we'll be giving away the review, so that'll be fun. All right, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, man. We've never given away this kind of power to people before, and part of me is like excited, part of me is very, very scared.
Maybe I'll finally get to see Dr. Giggles.
Maybe. There's so many.
Probably not, though.
It's probably. Look, my guess is it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be something that's like super simple, super easy, super what you would have figured, like Dark Knight or something like that, or it's going to be something that's so far off the beaten path that we may have never even thought about it in the first place. So, I'm curious. But we need to open up the old mailbag here, because last week, boys, we had quite the episode, and we got quite the email on account of it. So let's open up the mailbag. Gee whiz.
Bale's here.
Alrighty, so this email is entitled Conan the Barbarian, episode 154, and it reads as follows. I hardly know where to begin, but here we go. I apologize ahead of time. This is a very personal and self-indulgent email. First of all, James Earl Jones's hair in Conan the Barbarian is the best thing ever, not the worst, Adam. Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
When Bruce, this is amazing. You're going to love this, Bruce. When Bruce compared Conan to a proto-Burt Reynolds, I lost it. I almost fell out of my chair. I was at work listening, and I could hardly contain myself. Not only was it an hysterically appropriate observation, it really meant a lot to me, both as a Conan and Smokey are forever linked in my mind already. The first memory of Conan the Barbarian, the movie, was from a recorded from TV VHS tape from 1991. On Labor Day afternoon, I'm pretty sure it was this date and time, but memory can be fuzzy sometimes, TBS showed a double feature of Smokey and the Bandit and Conan the Barbarian. I think my dad had set the VCR to record Smokey and the Bandit, and I either asked him to set it or set it myself to record Conan the Barbarian afterwards. 14-year-old me, remember this is pre-internet and cell phones, fell in love with the movie. This was around the time where I'd already discovered and loved the Savage Sword of Conan comics. Everything about this movie appealed to my sensibilities at the time. This would not be the last time that these two films would be linked for me. As a very broke college student, I bought both movies on DVD not long after I got my first player in 1998. They were some of the first catalog titles available, and I purchased them at the same time on the same date at a Best Buy store. Somehow, these movies cannot be separated in my head. Years after watching the tape version of both movies, I discovered the cursing and nudity versions of Smokey and the Bandit and Conan the Barbarian, respectively. And while I enjoyed them, they're still not quite how I remembered these films growing up. To this day, my dad will still break out the old VHS recording of Smokey and the Bandit, and he watched it recently, and the tape still works.
Nice.
While I was disappointed that you guys did not like the movie, I agree that it is one of those movies that is either inextricably tied to your psyche because of its influence from your formative years, or it's not. And for me, Conan definitely is. I cannot observe the movie in a vacuum, nor can I view it objectively through the lens of 2017. I can only think of it as the awkward 14-year-old me thought of it. Arnold's voice, facial expressions, and the endless stream of sex and nudity, James Earl Jones is comically morphing into a snake, among other funny things. I get it. The movie is ridiculous and ridiculously bad. However, 14-year-old me will never forget how quote-unquote metal it all was. Keep up the great work. Thank you for reviewing this movie, and I'll be glad to email you guys some more suggestions for the Patreon fan votes. Robert, thanks for the email. Robert and I actually are very long friends. I came across him when I was like 16, working at a Harris Teeter, and we were like, "Oh, this Star Wars cutout came around," and we were like, "Oh, we got to get this, man. We got to see if we can take this home." And his name was already on the back, and we were like, "Who is this Robert jerk? There's no way he likes Star Wars better than we do." And it turns out he did. But yeah, we've been friends for a long time. We drove like 12 hours up to this Star Wars Celebration 3 in Indianapolis. We flew all the way to L.A. for the Star Wars Celebration 4 and Orlando at Celebration 5 and stuff. So we've been friends for a really long time. And
so did he enjoy the Qui-Gon cutout?
Yeah, I think he did. It's probably not. I don't think he's got it anymore. If I was to venture, I guess, unless it's like up in his attic or something. But for Nerd Talk now, though, at some point, just a little quick side note is I will be doing a tour of his home theater, and it's a proper self-contained home theater and everything. It is super.
Does he
dope.
know you're going to be doing this?
He does now.
I thought you're gonna, you got his work schedule. You know how to jimmy the lock.
Yeah, he's just. I'm not. He's not going to be there, mind you. But as long as I get what I want, who cares?
MTV's hottest new show, Other People's Cribs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I want y'all to keep it really low because the neighbors might hear something. But check this out. I like it. So thank you guys so much. If you want to email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We don't get a lot of emails, so guess what? We're going to read it on the show, man. We appreciate that so much. Before we get to the movie, though, we have to go to the good old-fashioned iTunes here and find out, who likes us. And, Bruce, I think we have a special one this week, right?
Yeah, we have one from Canada, eh?
Hey.
Yeah, and it's by iTunes. Actually, iTunes not user. He has a username, but he doesn't use iTunes. And the name of the review says it all. I'm still anti-Apple despite this iTunes review, and it is a 5-star review. AKA what?
Humdinger.
And here's what Lunchroom Alex has to say. I sent an email a while back, and it was read on your show about Super, where I said I would love to go to iTunes and give you guys a humdinger, but refused to contribute to Apple's rise to sentient existence. Well, here I am. I got the girlfriend a MacBook for her birthday. She's an Apple fan, and Skynet can have her. And I figured, what harm could one little bitty podcast review cause to human life as we know it? Anyway, I'm still a huge fan of everything you guys do, even your individual projects, Heroes and Villains, Nerd Talk Now, Preacher Podcast, and if Sean ever does anything else, I'll listen to that too. I look forward to this show every week and laughing along with you witty yahoos. Keep up the great work. In the great words of Jack Kirby, Alka-Seltzer. That was a good one.
Thank you, Lunchroom Alex. If you, no matter what country you're in, if you'd like to give us an iTunes review, even Alex, who hates us, hates iTunes.
Yeah, look, Alex is one of the few who doesn't.
Yeah, everyone else is not on board, but
you know, I'd kind of like to get a North Korean review, so that's the challenge out there.
Fingers crossed, man. What if Kim Jong Yum Yum was actually a big giant fan of us? That would be fantastic.
Oh man, we could be like James Franco and do our own remote podcast from North Korea.
Live from North Korea, where the bandwidth is garbage. It's HMP.
It's just the three of us and Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman is his riding chair. I like it. Yeah. I like it. I'm all for that. So thank you very much. If you'd like to give us a 5-star review, and if you're in a country that's not the U.S., pop us an email, man. Let us know that you reviewed it there, and we'll pull that up and read it on the air as well. Thank you guys so much for that. In the meantime, everybody, let's go ahead and take a listen to the trailer for Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh, boy!
The greatest hope against the threat of nuclear war is Superman.
I'm going to do what our governments have been unwilling or unable to do. Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
The greatest threat to Superman is Lex Luthor.
Smarter than I thought. We can make the world safe for war profits.
He's created the ultimate weapon to annihilate the Man of Steel.
You'd risk worldwide nuclear war for your own personal financial gain.
Nobody wants war. I just want to keep the threat alive.
Dude of Steel. Where are you gonna get it?
You know you're a workaholic. Why don't you stop and smell the roses, huh?
Superman 4, Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Jackie Cooper, John Cryer, with Mariel Hemingway and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. Superman 4, his most important adventure, the quest for peace.
All right, that was a trailer for Superman 4, The Quest of Peace. Here's the IMDb plot line. As we know, IMDb always correct in everything they say and or do. The Man of Steel crusades for nuclear disarmament and meets Lex Luthor's latest creation, Nuclear Man. This is, of course, starring all the people that the guy in the trailer just said, directed by Sidney J. Furie. Well, I'd forgotten to put together Bruce's little intro. We're going to have that for next week, Sean. Don't you worry. I had to, because I was like, well, maybe I got to bust out the guitar.
I knew it.
Well, you were right, as always, sir. So, Bruce.
And in all fairness, I had forgotten too until you just said that.
Yeah, it wasn't until about 4 hours ago, and I'm like, oh, I don't have time to go do that. I meant to. Tomorrow, like next week's episode will be a special one for many a reason. We'll debut it there. I think that's only fair.
We'll do it live. Screw it. We'll do it live.
I don't even have a guitar here. Can't do it. All right. Okay, let's do it live. Hit it, Sean.
Time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Oh, man, that's great. That sounded every bit as good as whatever Adam will put together.
You just go straight to the place, Bruce.
Well, guys,
straight to the place.
I like that. Well, guys, in biology, cloning is the process of producing similar populations of genetically identical individuals that occurs in nature when organisms such as bacteria, insects, or plants reproduce asexually. cloning in biotechnology refers to processes used to create copies of DNA fragments, cells, or organisms. Now, the term clone was invented by J.B.S. Haldane, and it's derived from the ancient Greek word klon, which means twig, referring to the process whereby a new plant can be created from a twig. Now, Hans Spemann, a German embryologist, was awarded a Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1935 because he and his student Hilde Mangold were the first to perform somatic cell nuclear transfer using amphibian embryos. That was one of the first moves towards real-world cloning as we think of it. Now, not to be outdone by Germans, an American scientist happened to invent something called a duplicating ray. And when he was demonstrating this duplicating ray to Superboy, an accident caused the ray to duplicate the superhero. Now, the copy quickly became labeled Bizarro, and it was a flawed imitation. It possessed this chalky white skin and childlike erratic behavior. Years afterward, Superman's arch foe Lex Luthor recreated the duplicating ray, and he used it on Superman, hoping to control the duplicate. Now, the Bizarro that was created was confused. It stated, "Me not human, me not creature, me not even animal, me unhappy, me don't belong in world of living people, me don't know difference between right and wrong, good and evil." Same thing I've said a few times. But anyway, Luthor is arrested by Bizarro for recreating him, but then he starts to forget everything because he tries to be Superman, and it doesn't work real well. He creates a lot of havoc in the city of Metropolis, almost exposes Superman's secret identity as Clark Kent, and eventually Bizarro falls in love with reporter Lois Lane. She uses the duplicating ray on herself to create a Bizarro Lois, who's instantly attracted to Bizarro. Then the Bizarros leave Earth together. They find a home planet that became known as Bizarro World and was shaped like a cube, if Super Friends can be believed. Now, after the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, Lex Luthor ordered his scientific team to create a clone of Superman. The process results once again in a flawed copy, which gets named This Bizarre, Oh, Forget It, and quickly becomes Bizarro. The point of all this is, when you clone Superman, you get Bizarro. Therefore, call him what you will, Nuclear Man should be Bizarro. Now, in late 1987, DC Comics prepared a comic book adaptation of Superman 4. It was scripted by Bob Rozakis, and it was penciled by Don Heck of Mad Magazine fame. And this edition included a lot of different dialogue than the film for reasons I can't figure out. It also included some of the deleted scenes of the movie. One of those deleted scenes is actually a battle with the failed prototype of Nuclear Man, which looks a lot like Bizarro. Then there's an around-the-world fight with the second Nuclear Man. And then there's an ending in the comic book that I think was cut from the movie that has Superman and the little kid that wrote the letter in the first place flying above Earth. And Superman kind of points out that the planet is, in reality, just one world rather than the divided world one sees on a man-made map. Now, I've never read this comic, but it's probably better than the movie because, come on, guys, what isn't?
Not a whole lot. Now, this I don't know. Maybe this comes as a surprise. Maybe it won't. I think of all the Superman movies, this is the one that I've seen the most.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think if I'm to venture,
that is odd, man. That is really, really odd.
Well, I think it goes back a lot to what Robert said in his email. This was just something that we had taped off of television or something, and that was just, you had a VHS tape there and you just watched it. And honestly, now, I think that's where it really came from, is that I didn't have a whole lot of choices. We didn't have a lot of money, so it was just like, hey, here's a Superman thing, so I'm going to watch it. I never really thought it was great, but it was Superman,
Well, we had this on VHS, but I did not watch it more than once. But Sean, how did you see Superman 4 for the first time? Like I'll be honest, I totally didn't even know that it had come out. Talking about movies that are on VHS around the house. When I was growing up, this probably would have been about 1990 before I ever saw this movie. And I would spend the school year with my mother, and I'd spend the summers with my father. And when I was at my mother's house, we didn't have cable. We didn't have HBO. We didn't even have a VCR. So in the summers, during the day when I had nothing to do, I would dig through my dad's like home recorded VHS collection, because on the free HBO weekends, he would like record all 48 hours of that free weekend, no matter what they showed. And I looked at one of the tapes and it said Superman 4 on it. And I was like, man, what's going on? My dad's an idiot. There's no Superman 4. This must be Superman 3 or something. I'm going to watch this. I kind of like that Richard Pryor guy. And then I pop it in and I see this. And I started to have this sort of an existential crisis, like, A, how did I not know this exists? B, who thought it was a good idea for this to exist? C, why did HBO show this on a free weekend? I don't think that's how you bring in the subscription money, if you ask me. And then I guess D, why hadn't my dad felt it necessary to tape over it yet? But I was really, really surprised that I had no idea that this movie was released theatrically, which I'm assuming it was.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that it was.
The way that I saw Superman 4 the first time, I grew up with Mark Pillow, the guy who plays Nuclear Man. And so he wanted to show me this Superman movie that he was in. And he was like, hey, why don't you come over once we're done lifting weights and running on the beach? Why don't you come on over? And we'll watch Superman 4 together. I was like, thanks, Mark Pillow. Absolutely. So I went to his house. It was very elegantly appointed. Like, you would be surprised at how nicely appointed his house is. It didn't look like a dude bro's house at all. And, he had the beta, because, it was still the 80s. He had a beta version of it.
Yeah.
Beta, by the way, even though it's made fun of, beta was better than VHS. It was just 1,000 times more expensive. And so, we watched it on beta, and it was pretty great. Like, I remember thinking that, why is everybody making fun of this movie? And I asked Mark Pillow, I was like, Mark Pillow, why does everybody make fun of this movie? And he's like, I don't know. I think it's great. And it was great. I mean, it's got Gene Hackman in it and Christopher Reeve. Those two guys are great.
My question to you, Sean, as growing up with Mark Pillow, what grade were you in before you realized that Mark Pillow and Gene Hackman have a very similar sounding voice?
Well, in real life, I understand you're making a joke, but Mark Pillow has a completely different voice than the one in this movie. I mean, they even pointed out that this is Lex Luthor's voice coming out of Nuclear Man. He sounds a lot more like Pat Sajak.
See, I was picturing a Mike Tyson thing going on with his voice.
You think I'm a little bit of a nuclear man?
I can see where you'd think that, because his neck is so big that it squeezes his voice box. But no, he sounds a lot more like Pat Sajak than you'd think.
Or maybe even a Lou Ferrigno thing. I had no idea what to expect of his voice.
Pat Sajak.
Especially being from Yorkshire, England, you'd think that West Yorkshire though, but that's a little different.
That's closer to Connecticut than Yorkshire.
It is.
Wait a minute, guys. I don't even. It's been so long, I never even questioned it before. I wonder if that guy was actually Mark Pillow or just some guy with a wig.
Why I don't think Mark Pillow got a lot of work? Your last name is Pillow. It's the Holly. Take a stage name, bro. Hollywood. That's like my nickname is Adam Bedsheet. It's not good. Pillow.
Well, his birth name was Cushion. He can't. His middle name was Throw. We can go all day with this.
Oh boy. So yeah, I've
also when the director's last name is Furry, Furry Pillow. I mean, come on.
All day long with this. So this was actually as you can see when you see the credits there, this is a love child of Mr. Superman himself. Christopher Reeve wanted to basically write this story, and so he kind of has a story credit. How much he actually wrote, I don't really know. Does anyone?
He actually this is interesting because I know a lot about this, and I'm not joking about this. This is actually for real. Christopher Reeve. He was really upset with what was happening to the Superman franchise. He wanted to get it back to, this is like, let's make it a little more dramatic and a little more serious again. And so his first thought was, hey, why don't we put together something where, the philosophical question of if Superman is so powerful, why isn't he making the world perfect? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And so it was his idea to make it where Superman is getting rid of all the nuclear weapons in the world. That was his idea. Now, how deep that goes into that, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that he really did shepherd this entire production into existence because it was that important to him. And, you know, we were saying this during the Patreon opening here today. By the way, go to patreon.com if you want to hear that stuff. There's a lot to talk about today. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they screwed him. Canon completely screwed him monetarily on this. There was an offer of $32 million to make Superman 4. Canon then completely went under, and they were losing money left and right, and so they pulled basically half the money and gave Christopher Reeve $17 million to make this movie. And, you know, that is a huge difference between 32 and $17 million. Like that is massive. And so the movie that they were trying to make didn't get made. And if Canon would have just said to them, hey, we can give it to you, but for $17 million, that looks like a completely different movie than the movie we got now.
Yeah. It's strange, too, because one thing, you know, from my understanding, Christopher Reeve really wanted to right the ship that he felt had gone astray with Superman 3. So bringing back Gene Hackman was going to be a big sign and move in the right direction. Margot Kidder is all through this movie. So his idea was we'll just kind of pretend that Superman 3 never happened. And in a weird kind of way, he didn't like the idea of the comedy version of Superman with Richard Pryor. But this goes into that so bad it's funnier than the one that's supposed to be funny. Like, they're both bad movies, but the one that's supposed to be a bad comedy may not make you laugh as much as the one that's supposed to be really serious about world peace.
Well, you know, here's the thing with this movie, you know, and I know this keeps coming up with the Superman movies, especially watching 3 and 4. From me, I keep saying this. There is an earnestness to these movies that is, it's just fascinating to me. And I can watch these movies, not all the time, but I could probably watch 3 and 4, Superman 3 and 4, once a year and totally enjoy it. You know, Christopher Reeve is just so good as Superman. And it's so sorely missing in these new movies. You like Christopher Reeve. The second he walks on screen, whether he's Superman or Clark Kent, he is incredible as Superman.
Now, I've got a question here. The opening credits, you know, Superman, the movie, was, one of the most common sort of trivia bits about that movie is how a huge portion of the budget was spent just on those state-of-the-art opening credits, you know, something that's a work of art on, you know, if there's a opening credits Hall of Fame, you know, the first thing that goes in there is Superman the movie. And then this one, it looks kind of like a screensaver on a computer from around 93, you know, with them just kind of bouncing around.
Hey, being in the late 80s, man, that's pretty up to date then.
But I mean, you know what you're getting as soon as those opening credits start. Those are really chintzy. But one thing I did notice is they call it a Golden Globus production, but they don't use the term Canon Films in the opening credits.
Well, you don't want to, you know, be like, hey, this is going to be the same thing as a Chuck Norris flick.
Or, you know, Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, very true.
We'll get to all that later.
But
yeah.
No, I think it is weird because, like, you can definitely tell that this is lower budget, but I think with what they had, I think they stretched it to the best of their possible abilities.
They're in outer space for a lot of this movie.
Yeah.
Way more than it should for a $17 million budgeted movie. I find it so charming, and Superman flying looks so bad. It looks so bad in this movie.
It looks worse than it ever has.
It doesn't matter. It's like watching those old serials where it's like, oh, look, that's kind of neat the way that they try to make it look like Superman is flying, and, you know, when Nuclear Man becomes like an embryo, a space embryo, and then he becomes a space baby, and then he like that stuff is so neat to me.
Well, what I want to know is, when you're getting such severe budget cuts on your movie, why do you spend so much money on John Cryer's sound system in his car?
First of all, this was a scene that I always loved. Now I'll be honest with you, because I'm a bit younger, growing up and everything. John Cryer didn't mean jack squat to me, right? I was never watching John Hughes films because I was just too young.
Because I was. He meant something to me.
Exactly. It means something different for everybody, because this was one. Because honestly, I don't think I've seen this film since I was probably 12 years old, right? But going in this, I was like that. Like when I saw his name in the credits, I was just like, "What is John Cryer in this? That seems odd." And he pulled up, was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had not even known." And I love the character's awful, and that's what I love about it. It's just so
yeah.
He's just like, he's perfect. That character is so stupid and so annoying, and just that kind of like just perfect 80s punk rock surf kind of amalgamation.
It's weird. They give him this real rockabilly vibe in his costume and the car they put him in and the music he's listening to. But then he has a real Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure kind of performance. So it's, this odd, like, John Cryer obviously knew how to do like the Valley kind of thing. But then the costumer and the director really wanted this sort of Stray Cats fan, I
loved everything about it.
Did you like the speakers on his convertible I never knew it was so easy to break out of a chain gang either, that you just drive up to it.
Just drive on up on your Cadillac.
Back at the farm, man. Back at the farm when Superman refuses to sell the farm to somebody unless they too want to be a farmer. First off, man, if anybody out there has ever tried to get out from under a house, you don't care if they want to turn it into a landfill filled with illegal nuclear waste. You just want to get out from under it. So in a movie about an alien chicken cutlet that's powered by the sun, I find it too unbelievable that he wouldn't just sell the house. This is real Dust Bowl. That farm does not look prosperous.
No.
But when he goes into the barn and kicks open the old space shuttle that he came down from Krypton, I was absolutely shocked that Marlon Brando didn't return for this movie.
Well, I'm surprised. I know you made a joke there, but I'm surprised that they shelled out the money to keep the John Williams score.
Well, my guess is they because John Williams is credited for the score, and then there's the adaptation of it, because the majority of the score for this movie is just riffs on the Superman theme. On all the themes that John Williams had previously kind of established and everything. So I think they took like the main, the bones of it and just kind of fleshed it out from there. But it still works. And I kind of
wonder, I mean, I don't know how the music side of the industry works, but I always kind of get the idea that, with the first movie, when he does that initial theme and they know they may want to use it again in the future, that they buy the rights in perpetuity or something. I mean, I'm sure he gets some kind of residual, but I imagine there's a big paycheck up front, and then they can kind of use it as much as they want on the back end.
As is my understanding, he'll get like a small cut, like you said, in perpetuity for this, that, and the other, and if they kind of use it again. And that was what was funny, is like going around, I went to Universal Studios last weekend, just hearing so many of the theme songs and stuff, even just within like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, right? Just going through it, I'm just going, I wonder if John Williams gets a nickel every time this plays. Man, oh man, that'd be awesome. Just the best mailbox money ever.
Yeah, that would be kind of nice, man. But
passive income is the best income.
Got that right.
Yeah, you tell me. You don't have to tell me that 4 times. I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of weird. They bring in, I guess this is his mom, but there's a lot of dots that aren't connected real well. And we'll get onto this more in the middle/end of the movie. But there's a lot of stuff that you really feel the deleted scenes when they cut this down to an 89-minute picture.
Yeah, really starts to
wasn't it much longer, like 45 minutes longer?
Yeah, it was over 2 hours.
Wow.
But the person starts talking to him, and I assume it's his mom, because I can tell, even on a small TV, you can tell that's not Marlon Brando.
Explain.
It has to do with the lack of insanity in the performance. But then she tells him, there's the last power crystal in your ship, and it will only work once. But they don't really,
say what it does per se.
Don't explain much about it at all. I mean, it's like the worst kind of MacGuffin in the story. Where it's like they've already started filming before they finished it, and they're like, yeah, we're going to need some kind of plot device at the end. We don't know what it is yet, but go ahead and shoot this, and we'll just add it in later.
We'll write the VO in post. Don't worry about it. But
yeah, we're not going to drop this thread. But
here's how I know it had to be his mom, though, right? Because she, too, says Krypton.
Yeah.
It drove me up the wall. I'm like, this is wrong. It's been addressed kind of a lot.
She's a big fan of Brando. She studied his acting.
That's got to be Krypton. Yeah, shut up.
And then also for a movie with budget constraints, and you got to show Superman doing a little something, but it seems like the dollar towards cinematic enjoyment ratio is probably pretty low on that whole runaway subway train.
Yeah. I want to talk about. So real quick before we leave the farm there, though.
Yeah.
Again, and you're right, but Christopher Reeve is he's all about this. This is why he's the best at this. When he has to turn, you can just tell he's making these decisions as an actor. When he has to turn on Clark, and everything that he does as Clark is done for a specific reason, and you even see it there on the train and stuff, he's doing all of it even when no one's looking, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
When he knows that he's out there in public and there's not people that really recognize him or anything, he's still playing that role. And he's doing it so darn well that it's so cool. And then, like, you know, when he throws up the when he could easily just even, you know, tap the baseball and it would go someplace. To him to just have this just horrible swing and miss around and then just literally knock it out of the earth as a kid was so cool to me.
And I like it that the real estate agent that talks like Foghorn Leghorn and dresses like J.R. Ewing insists on playing a quick round of baseball before he leaves.
Now, boy,
that was really odd.
I say, boy, what I want you to do is hit it right at your house. See if you can knock out a window. Here we go.
I wonder if what movie this set was on before Superman 4, because Keenan is just infamous for that. Where this is our old set from Death Wish 3, or whatever.
It looks like the Grapes of Wrath.
It does, but Keenan didn't shoot the Grapes of Wrath.
Well, no, it was just left over for the
40s. I did see some pictures from the filming of this, in a little bit of brief internet research that I did, and they said essentially Canon Films thought that fire hydrants could turn anything into New York City, and there's this picture of like this big like plaza with just concrete. I would imagine maybe there's a fountain in it or something, and they've just got like 3 random fire hydrants, nowhere near the street, nowhere near any buildings. It's like fire hydrant in the middle of an empty concrete plain, and that made it New York to them. Oh, they also shipped in pigeons to try to make it look like New York, but like all the pigeons flew away before they got them on camera.
Well, you know
that is
song.
How you do it.
You remember that old song, When You Get Caught Between a Fire Hydrant in New York City?
Yeah,
good.
They got to learn to tape the pigeons down with duct tape next time.
They just fly.
So what did you guys think of Gene Hackman in this movie?
If there was scenery in it, he was chewing on it, boy. I love how. So at the end of Superman 1, which we reviewed in the very, very, that may have been like episode 2 of HMP or something like that.
It's where the Stallone connection originally came from.
That was the next words out of my mouth. But we see Lex just take off the quote-unquote wig because Hackman just didn't want to, shave his head. And yet, somehow, the quote-unquote wig here at this point is now just disappearing. I love his, you know what? I'm just not going to do it, and you can just shut up. It's so great.
I'm in it. You're welcome.
I get the idea that Gene Hackman really put more effort into this than he needed to, but I still don't think he gave it his all.
Well, see, I disagree with you. I think that Gene Hackman, every time he's on screen with Christopher Reeve, those two guys together are
I agree with that.
Absolutely magical, man. And when they my favorite scene in this, do you guys have a favorite scene in this movie?
I think I do. I definitely have a favorite scene.
Yeah, what's yours, Bruce?
It's when Nuclear Man drives Superman into the ground like a nail with his fist.
I love that too. I love it.
You don't know how many times a week I really wish I could just do that to someone. There could be no more satisfying way to end an argument than just taking your fist and driving them into the ground like a spike.
The Magneto.
Oh man,
Bruce
you
comes
know
out
what?
again.
That brings up a good point. You may be the sneaky pick for angriest host of HMP, Bruce. I've always thought it was Adam, but you might be the sneaky winner there.
Everyone goes towards me, but you're wrong.
Anger.
It's Bruce's like. Here's the thing: in real life, Bruce is like a little bit more quiet, and those are the ones that you got to look out for because those are the dudes that'll get you when you ain't even paying attention. They're like, oh, he's nothing. There's no threat over there, and next thing you know, gone.
So, Adam, No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, nobody wants me to get bitten by a radioactive insect of any kind because I'm going straight Magneto.
Yeah, it's coming out, man. It's coming out.
So, Adam, what's your favorite scene? It's the hammering him down like a nail.
Yeah. It's a nuclear man fight. It's terrible, but the kid in me just loved it.
God, I just found it so enjoying. Like every time Nuclear Man's on screen, none of that's great. No, I don't believe they're on the moon for a second.
What?
But I love those fight scenes. I think they're so great. They're campy. They are just so fun to watch. If they only had those moments, like on a screen in a bar or something, I could watch that all the time. I know I could.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I've mentioned it before in this podcast. I honestly think if this movie could have been directed by Michael Bay, it would have been the most amazing thing ever.
You better shut your mouth.
Oh, it would be
shut your mouth.
Good, son.
Shut it.
I've got a couple of debates. You know, there are a couple of great movie debates. You know, they're always going to be out there. The great timeless debates. And one of those that I find myself pulled into time and time again is who's better, Lenny Luthor or Otis? And I'm Team Otis all day long.
Oh, Team Otis. Come on. How is that even a fight?
I think Adam's going to disagree with us.
I'm going Lenny.
Yep. See?
Really?
I'm
the
going
contrarian
Lenny.
is contrary. What do you think about that?
What a surprise. What a surprise.
I'm going Lenny, man. But come on. It's like, but they still, I'll say this for all the stuff, they still have, it's still this horrible.
Listen, to this day, you can tell how big a nerdy nerd is when you turn to them and you go, Otisville? And they know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, the next great debate. There are 3 great debates in this movie, but the next one is who's hotter, Miss Tessmacher or the fat guy that owns the nuclear missile plant?
I'm going option C, a young Jim Broadbent.
Well, okay, now we're in because no one asked, but I'm going to tell. My favorite scene in Superman 4 is when Hackman shows up with the 2 ladies and he's like, "Excuse me, I've got to go talk to these 3 gentlemen." And he walks over to them, and you've got Jim Broadbent, you got another guy, and then you've got Porkins from Star Wars.
Yes.
That is Porkins, man. That is William Hootkins. That is William Hootkins. I know it is. I just looked it up on IMDb. It is in fact Porkins.
So
and
great.
can we all agree that he's sexier than Miss Tessmacher?
Yes. Yes, I think we can.
I'm Team Porkins on that one.
I'll do it. Yeah, I will say yes.
Okay, and then my final great debate is Ernest Hemingway's niece or Hot Lips Houlihan, because we've got the Loretta Swit versus the, what was her name, like Lucille Warfield or Lacey Warfield. That was it.
Yeah, it's Lacey Warfield.
So
but
got the
Adam,
Loretta
you go
Swit.
first because I have a diatribe on this. So go ahead first, Adam.
I'm going to, again, it comes back to being young and what you watched at the time. I'm going with Warfield.
Hey, I'm going to say, and then I'll let you get your diatribe. But to anybody who has ever had to write a high school book report, you love the fact that The Old Man and the Sea is only like 95 pages long. So I'm going to hold up the Hemingway family tree and support Marielle here.
Yep.
I am also going Mariel Hemingway. Here's the thing. Mariel Hemingway has the weirdest, like, box-shaped head of anyone I've ever seen on movies before. Her head looks like she is part of Minecraft.
It's Steve Hemingway.
But with that being said, there is something so pretty about her, and especially in this movie, if you can get past all the 80s Italian stupid fashion that she's wearing, she is breathtakingly gorgeous in this movie, even though she has a Minecraft head.
Now, how do you feel about Margot Hemingway in terms of like how she sort of looks like Marielle, but not that much like her?
I'm trying to,
because there used to be a couple of times when I would see Margot Hemingway in something, and I would think, well, Marielle Hemingway looks a little bit different. I don't know what it is. And I would realize it was Margot, but then, I don't want to talk too much because isn't Margot the one that, had an unfortunate turn of events about 5-10 years ago?
I think so.
No, that's Margot Kidder that you're thinking of. Margot Kidder was the one who went bananas.
Margot Hemingway, I think, may have followed in Ernest Hemingway's footsteps and taken her own life.
A lot of them
Really?
have. A lot of them have, actually. So they've kind of, as morbid as it sounds, they've kind of kept the family tradition alive. I mean, it is what it is.
Oh yeah! Wow, she's wow. I did. First of all, I didn't even remember that she was in They Call Me Bruce. I didn't even know that.
I can't forget that movie for some reason.
Yeah, why? Why would you? Yeah, wow, died 1996. I did not know that.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm going her. I'm giving her the upper.
So there's
the upper hand
real
there.
downer moment. But how about that?
Way to bring it down, Leslie.
Patreon.com/trainer.
How about that personal trainer in the gym? That's like the least in shape person in this movie is the personal trainer in the gym.
Come this way, Clarky.
I know it. Christopher Reeve's abs are literally showing through the Superman costume. And then you have a guy who looks like the guy who played Spider-Man in the 70s movie as the trainer.
See, I was thinking he looked kind of like Murdoch from Too Close for Comfort. No, for Too Close for Comfort. Monroe, not Murdoch. Monroe from Too Close.
Jim J. Bullock?
Yeah, he had a little bit of that body, not the face.
This movie could use a little Jim J. Bullock.
You know, you've got Mark Pillow, you got Christopher Reeve, a couple guys that actually have been to the gym, and then you get how does that call go down? We're looking for a personal trainer type. Well, we got a guy who's available between the times you want to shoot. That's all right. Does he have both arms, both legs? Send him over.
Meatheads can't act,
and a really
man.
thick belt and some short shorts.
Outside the rock.
God, so good.
Meatheads can't act. Now, here's the thing, though. I love the bits that they play and stuff. Him kind of doing his little, tricep machine or something, right? And him just like kind of launching himself, up in the air, and then just like him looking like a complete and utter spaz. And then he kind of gets the final little last lap there, no pain, no gain, throwing the giant weights on him and stuff. It's kind of like, it's the only time we see Superman be a bit of a jerk, and I kind of like it.
What are you talking about? Superman 3, half that movie, he's just a massive tool.
Well, that's not the real Superman. This was Superman.
That's
he was
5
under
o'clock shadow Superman.
Yeah, he was under the influence. This is called straight Superman decides I'm going to mess with this cat.
You know something we haven't talked about yet. Something we haven't talked about yet is Margot Kidder. And Margot Kidder, I realized in this movie, from this movie, no one yells "help, help" like Margot Kidder. Have you noticed that from this movie?
Yeah.
Now, earlier we kind of mentioned that Margot Kidder had her own personal struggles, and I think she's starting to. I think she's starting to have a little bit of trouble when they're filming this movie because there's some times where she has the crazy eyes going on,
without a doubt. And
something else. You can either confirm or refute this, but every time Superman goes in for the kiss, the camera angle goes straight to the back of his head, and it is a wig, and he has a stunt double kissing Margot Kidder in this movie.
Oh, I didn't.
That is true.
Wow.
That says a lot, man.
They did not get along in this movie. And when Margot Kidder was interviewed years later about it, she said she was having a difficult time with Christopher Reeve. And she said that he was becoming an egomaniac because he helped write the story for this movie. But Christopher Reeve, being such a wonderful gentleman, he was like, I don't remember that. I don't remember us having troubles on that set. Like, he's just being a nice guy. And she's like, and another thing.
Yeah, from a lady who downed to fifth every morning, I don't know that we really should...
But I mean, she may not have even had her own teeth at the point she's making this movie, because I know when she did have her psychotic break and showed up in somebody's backyard, it came out, public news that she had only false teeth at that point.
Right.
But it was like, but you're right, and we've said this since the first Superman. She does seem like your crazy aunt who's just kind of going off the rails and like smoking cigarettes and just, hi everybody, I'm here for the show. It's like, oh my God, you're crazy.
She's really starting to show that she's losing it, and maybe that's because they didn't have the budget to do 15 takes or 500 takes or 2,000 takes, how many it takes to get a subdued performance from her, but you can tell she's struggling to hold it together in the takes that they used. And when they're flying, the harnesses were second rate compared to the other movies. Superman doesn't look great when he's flying, but she looks like somebody's Meemaw in their house coat, the way that she can't even keep her legs straight, can't keep her arms straight. I mean, she's really dangling from the harness pretty visibly, like you would imagine Aunt May, like the old school Aunt May flying around in the air.
Let's talk about that flying scene. Because they go from like what Metropolis, which by looking at the skyline, we're going to infer that's New York, all the way over to San Francisco and back, and I think probably someplace else, all in a span how long?
Hey, the man can fly fast enough to turn back time. He's Cher's favorite superhero, so they can make it to San Fran and back.
I guess. And what kind of, does he have, like, is this the weird, I never got this, like the weird just kissing power, where it's just like, by the way, this is like a Superman roofie. You ain't going to remember none of this.
Hey, how about the brick vision? He's got brick vision now.
Listen, I'll take brick vision over. I'm going to kiss you, and you forget about everything we just did for the past. What one would assume would be 3 hours worth of flight time at minimal.
I can deal with the mind-wiping kiss better than I can deal with shooting bricks out of his eyes into the Great Wall of China, and it matches perfectly.
Yeah, the masonry vision. Yeah, masonry vision. Like I said at the beginning, like that is one of the greatest special effects of any superhero movie ever. I don't care who you are.
And I like
brick vision.
I like that they didn't even have like the proper budget to get a different shot of him, because like his hair part changes. Did you notice that? Well, the brick building thing, that was not initially supposed to be in there. He's supposed to literally just build it up with his hands as fast as they could. No budget, so they can't do that. They took that him staring, that was from a completely different scene. He'd only looked one direction when he did it. So when he goes back to clear the second part of the wall, it's just a reverse shot. They just reverse the film, so he's looking the other direction. His hair part changes and then goes back again.
Clearly, it's just a reverse shot.
No, of Christopher Reeve.
I know.
Oh yeah. So it's
I was wondering why the S looked funny on that one.
But his hair goes back and forth and back again. It was so great.
Oh man, and the hair is bad in this one.
Oh,
the
his
Superman
hair's awful.
Ooh, spackled down. Ooh, but we can't go. I can't believe we've gone this long without a deep dive discussion into Sean Keenan's own personal friend, Mark Pillow. So let's talk a little Nuclear Man here.
Right.
First off,
at least I think that's Mark Pillow.
I love the way that we get Space Embryo, which is kind of weird. I don't know that we needed Space Embryo. He could have just shown up from like an explosion, and I would have gone with it. But once you show him developing in his space womb, it doesn't make sense to me that he's born with his costume on.
Hey, they threw some stuff in that in the lunchbox that they attached to the rocket. How that works, I don't know.
It looked like some chicken fat. Yeah. Oh, and the DNA. They get Superman's DNA from his hair at the museum. The single strand of hair is holding up a 10,000-pound paper mache weight, and then they just cut it with wire cutters. And you know I'm the kind of guy that gets under my skin. Like I'm supposed to understand that this is Superman's indestructible hair, but all Gene Hackman has to do is cut the hair with wire cutters, and he can take it. Like they should have at least gone to the trouble of showing him cutting through the weight below it and taking it that way.
I understand why you're having problems with this, Bruce, but what you don't know is that Lex made those cutting shears from the rocket that made Superman come to Earth.
Those are kryptonite cutting shears? Then what's he need Nuclear Man for?
Cutting shears.
What does he need Nuclear Man for? Just stabs Superman with it.
Because he's cool?
I always thought it was the hair that was connecting in between the top and the bottom there, so it just kind of like, I gave it enough. I give enough of a wide berth. But here's the thing that I don't get, is how, Lex has spent the last, we're going to say 10 years or whatever in the quarry, just, chipping away at rocks, as you do in modern day. And somehow he comes out and he just is a molecular genius. He just knows all this crap. He has the goods. It's like, I got a couple of beakers here. They've got colorful liquid in them. Sure, that's science, whatever. And they throw a bunch of crap in a lunchbox and just go, look, I don't know how any of this is going to work, but I know it's going to work, so we're just going to do it.
And I also love that
and
going
no
back
one
to
questions.
the escapes and turning the knob back, hitting rewind. The escape scene, the escape plan was they shoved the only two prison guards at this whole chain gang into a car, launched the car Thelma and Louise style off of this massive chasm. Then at the end, they climb back up to the top, and the only damage they've suffered is some white dust on their face.
They go all Looney Tunes.
I really like that.
Oh, I knew you would because it's garbage. First of all, these guys should be dead. They're a villain killed you. Why do you have to just be like it was so? It's the so like. Well, he's a bad guy, but he didn't kill anybody, so it's okay.
You could at least give him a bloody nose or a cut over his eye, right?
Yeah, they gave him the Boss Hogg treatment. It's terrible.
So if Lenny's car flew off the cliff, what was their conveyance for escape? Did I miss something? Like, was there another car hidden in a rock?
They got to a truck
or
something, I think.
Oh, okay. They might have escaped in the paddy wagon. I don't know.
Something like that. I don't. All I know is they both at the same time go kill Superman right up, and they just go off into the sunset.
Now, the next thing that catches me, Nuclear Man shows up. He is instantly in love with Lacey Warfield there, Mariel Hemingway, and I can't blame the guy for thinking she's cute, but for narrative purposes, at least the first draft, it was Lois Lane he wanted, right? I mean, the story demands that he wants Lois Lane, but people knew nobody was going to buy that.
Well, here is the part, and this is actually for real again, is that one of the things that the writer spoke about in the commentary of Superman 4 is that Christopher Reeve knew that they needed a new generation of people, like a younger generation of people, because both he and Margot and Gene Hackman were getting older. And so to have Nuclear Man fall for Mariel Hemingway, to bring in John Cryer, all of these people, they all needed to be young so that they could grab a bigger demographic of people. And so I think on purpose, it never was supposed to be Lois Lane. I think it was always supposed to be Mariel Hemingway. Because also, it seems like if they were going to make a fifth one, Margot Kidder was probably not going to be in it.
Yeah, I think that she's not in anything else. This is her last, her swan song of a performance.
Right.
We got to get the kids in there. What are they like? Ducky, put them in there.
But if this is a comic book, if this is, you take out the human element for story purposes, it's King Kong. It's got to be it's got to be Superman's main squeeze he's after, and not the executive who hits on Clark and Clark turns her down for reasons no other person can understand.
But I want to say this too. It's like this movie also, for all of its wacky and zaniness and everything, has kind of a very early comic booky sort of feel to it. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But editing, a lot gets lost on me in editing once this movie goes into its final 30 minutes, because we have the big fight where Superman's fighting against Nuclear Man, round one. Superman saving the Statue of Liberty. I think he gets scratched, and then he's sick, and then without any explanation, he's really old the next time we see him. And like I say, I feel like there was a plan to explain exactly what happened, but I guess you get scratched by Nuclear Man, Superman turns old. You really have to make some leaps of logic there.
They didn't dig into it
there is a deleted scenes part of the menu for the Blu-ray for Superman 4. I could not bring myself to watch those deleted scenes. I'm sure there's something in there for that, but I'm not going to watch them.
And then, of course, the cure for old age is the last power of Krypton, which, once again, he goes and grabs it, and I assume, that's going to be what fixes it. But they never really explain this crystal. And she says you can only use it once, so she doesn't tell him what he uses it for. What if he uses it at that moment, and he finds out that's the thing to make you older and wiser at a time you need wisdom? That would have been a bad match.
Put this betwixt your cheeks, and you'll become Superman again. I don't know.
My guess is that he crushed it. He crushed up the kryptonite and put it in his Pepsi, because Pepsi is all over this movie.
Not to even mention that his secret weapon that allows him to not be old anymore and to go back for round 2 with Nuclear Man is a shard of kryptonite, his one weakness.
Yeah, that's insane. That's so nuts.
Kryptonite.
But, they've always been kind of weird with that, with the movies. Remember, in Superman 2, he picks up the kryptonite and it makes him strong again? They're all over the place with the kryptonite.
In Superman 2, it's not as good as the brick vision, but when he throws the logo off his chest and it becomes like Spider-Man netting, that's another leap of logic.
Yes, pretty great. Pretty great.
Don't know if those are the words I'd use.
When we get fight round 2, Superman versus Nuclear Man, the rematch, I love it that his clever way of defeating him is the old shove him in an elevator trick, because I feel like that's one of Superman's moves I might be able to successfully pull off.
Don't go there. I swear, she's not in there. Oh, what are you doing, sir? I got you, fool.
Shove him in the elevator and, light up all the buttons so he has to stop on every floor.
And then throw him into a nuclear reactor.
Well, no, first he goes to the dark side of the moon because he needs...
which doesn't remain dark for very long, which is odd. It's called, dude, there's another side. Don't go to where the sun could hit, I don't know, ever?
Yeah, I thought the whole idea, and I thought it was kind of, clever enough for a movie like this, is put him on the dark side of the moon. You never have to worry about him again. If there's a sequel, you could say that some astronaut discovers him and accidentally brings him into the light. But no, they just have the dark side of the moon not be dark anymore.
Ugh.
I'm starting to think they did not have professional astronomers working on this movie.
I don't think they had well, of course, how many people end up in space with no oxygen? I'm not talking about Superman and Meteor Man. I'm talking about just
Mariel Hemingway.
Just straight people up in space with nothing, and they're like, whatever.
And then
whatever.
And then the way he finally defeats Nuclear Man is he actually moves the moon from its orbit to cause an eclipse. And, I'm no astronomer, but I'm going to guess that probably would have some repercussions.
That would mess up the world's oceans like crazy, dude. Like that fast, something would happen. I don't know what.
Worse, I mean, what if he just moves it too far, throws it out of orbit, and now it just becomes a really, really big meteor?
You guys are nitpicking. I thought it was very clever, and I loved it. I loved every second. Oh, Superman just moved the moon. Very clever, Superman. Very clever, I said.
And I think, I saw a summary of the plot, and I didn't get this from watching the movie. But by the end of this movie, watching it, man, I'm only watching it with one eye by the time we get to the end. But when he throws Nuclear Man into the nuclear power plant, I guess we're supposed to deduce that he's now producing electricity, like, for this whole city.
I guess
and they don't need more plutonium or whatever.
Yes.
I like how straight down the big giant tube there, right? It goes all the way down, and there's like an exhaust port. This is Death Star-esque. He drops them down, and then the nuclear garbage can lid closes on top.
How about you stop nitpicking and just enjoy the show, Portrais? Enjoy the show.
And how about the concept? Nuclear Man needs sunlight to function. Wouldn't that make him Solar Man? Like, aren't solar power and nuclear power kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of renewable energy or whatever?
You see, Bruce, this is what you don't know about science.
Like, he should be his own sun. That's like, he is fusion now. He shouldn't need the sun to make him light up. He's not a calculator.
He should get a job.
What, am I a scientist? How am I supposed to know how that works? Just throw him into the sun. Throw him into the sun.
But I love how Lex also knows that, like he just goes, oh, well, that's clearly because he needs the sun to just live. Okay, he's like, it's the one weakness they have, and like there should be like a graphic that pops up at the bottom just going comic book trope.
And then there's something like, I don't know, 1987. Was Boys Town still a thing in 1987 that people would readily identify with? He drops John Cryer off at Boys Town where, in our modern day, you see a big sign that says Boys Town and a priest standing next to it. Your mind goes in a direction it probably shouldn't.
Oh, we'll take care of them all right. Come on there, Johnny boy. No, but it's like boys. Like
you
that's
thought
like,
you had problems before, John Cryer. Now you've really got problems.
What's that, Ducky?
The only reason that I even know what Boys Town is because Bart Simpson was too crazy for Boys Town and too much of a boy for Crazy Town.
Isn't that the name of a boy band, like a failed boy band?
I'm sure it is.
I think there was a Crazy Town or something like that. There's a crazy. I think you're right.
There's a song called Funky Town.
Yeah, Lips Incorporated.
He was too funky for Boys Town, too much of a boy for Funky Town. That would have worked too.
Let's see what else. There's. I did love that the elevator, like cables and everything, were pretty much made out of like nylon or something. They were super.
Yeah.
That was just corny. I don't know. That just stuck out.
We didn't even mention the UN and the fact that an elementary school class has a debate about nuclear weapons and decides that a totally rational thing to do is write a letter to Superman. And we get this kind of a long subplot in a very short movie about this kid who's kind of a punk. Like, I don't blame Superman if he just threw the letter away, because that kid is not like a sweet. This is no Haley Joel Osment here. This kid's sneering the whole time.
I'm telling you, Superman better get his stuff together, boy. And you're like, oh,
he looks like he might be one of the producers' like sons.
You know, much could be.
Which leads me to this.
And to get to the UN for a second. That set, the UN set, looks like it might have been in a high school gymnasium. That looks absolutely nothing like the UN.
It's very dollar store.
And make sure every offensive stereotype is represented from a random smattering of countries.
And then,
oh man, you're right.
But the big thing is like right after that speech and everything, where he just goes, well, first of all, he walks right in. No appointment needed, mind you. Superman's just going to walk right in. They're not going to search, nothing like that. He just walks straight in, and they're like clapping the whole way like he's coming in for a hockey game or something. He walks right up and just goes, hey, what's up? I know it ain't right, but I want to talk. And they're like, we got to get a sponsor. Everyone says yes. And then when he goes, I want to rid the world of nuclear arms, everyone starts clapping. This is the most unrealistic thing in a movie where a man can fly, is that every country just goes, yeah, that's just great. Why don't we just... No, that would be mass chaos.
And there's a part of me that would love to see someone take the scene where Henry Cavill has to go to Congress from Batman v Superman and have like the serious stark music and lighting and have Henry Cavill say something, then switch to the reaction shot of the UN from this movie.
Oh God, that would be. First of all, that would make the Henry Cavill Superman movie a lot better. We both know that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
There is an earnestness to these movies that is sorely, sorely missing from Man of Steel.
And speaking of that, the little punk kid and everything, this movie should just be called ADR Central, because all this movie is just ADR. No one sounds like they're supposed to be where they are. The lips almost match up most of the time, but it's bad news, man.
Speaking of the kid and speaking of the elementary school class, how about they, give Margot Kidder just a little less screen time and that elementary teacher a little more?
Right? That elementary teacher was hot.
Yeah. I mean, everything's relative, but yeah.
Yeah. Look, 1987, 6, whatever, it's getting it done, I says. Well, on that note.
I got to mention it. I also got to mention the ludicrous double date. Clark and Superman go on the double date with Margot and Mariel, with Lois Lane and Lacey. Man, I swear I saw that episode of Saved by the Bell where that happened, and Zach did it just as good as Superman.
That or like Three's Company. Like it's just
Jack Tripper has a date with 2 girls at the Regal Beagle at the same time, and he doesn't know what he's going to do.
It's so good. Mrs. Doubtfire. I love all that kind of crap. I just do. It's
Me too.
It's corny and silly, but I love it.
And it is very comic booky.
Yeah, very.
No, in the comic book, you would have Martian Manhunter shapeshift to look like Clark Kent or something like that.
That's why we don't have you write these films, Bruce. You just put in the logic in there. No, he's going back and forth and changing outfits. All right. Anything else before we start winding her down?
Have Jimmy Olsen dress up like Superman and try to expect everybody to go with it.
It's the Little Steel, but with we call him Little Jimmy.
Yeah. Super Jim.
You're looking a little less svelte than normal, Superman. What's going on? There must be a high kryptonite concentrate in the air this week. I don't know what's going on.
Superman, when did you add the plaid bow tie to the ensemble?
Oh, crap. Get it off. Put it down the pants.
All right, man. I think we've covered all the important stuff. I wanted to make sure we talked about Boys Town and the Saved by the Bell, a.k.a. Three's Company double date.
All right. With that, we got to get to the most important part of this program here is when we relate this movie back to our good old friend, Sylvester Stallone.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Does the name Firewalker mean anything to you? Well, it should, fella, because it's the best movie that's ever been made that stars both Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. What about Death Wish 4, The Crackdown? Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
If any of these movies hit your sweet spot, you have Joe Straw to thank for them. Joe Straw was the most important employee on these shows because Joe Straw was the accountant. On a movie, the 2 people you absolutely need to make nice with are the catering guy and the accountant. Some people will lie to you and tell you the most important person is the director or maybe the lead actor, but those people are idiots because a director can't screw with your food and the actor ain't handling your money. And Joe Straw was the production accountant on Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And not only does Joe Straw have the coolest name ever given to an accountant, but he also worked on the movie Alien from L.A., which stars Kathy Ireland. Can you believe it? How lucky is this guy?
Oh, my gosh, I've seen this movie.
Then in a move that seems like Joe Straw might have made a deal with the devil himself, he became the accountant on a movie, Cobra, starring a guy who wore fingerless gloves for most of 1985, Sylvester Stallone. We've talked about Cobra on HMP before, on episode 92 of HMP when we reviewed Deadpool. Now, Adam, I remember you having a lot to say during that podcast, but for the life of me, I cannot remember a single point that you made. And Bruce, you had made the point that February was becoming the month where there's the weird, different style of comic book movie that comes out, and that year was no exception. Because the movie Adam Portrais was most looking forward to in 2017 was Lego Batman, and that came out in February also. Mm-hmm. Now, Adam, all you have to look forward to is Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy, you poor guy.
Yeah.
Since we've spoken about Cobra before, I won't do any of my usual hijinks explaining how difficult it was to work with Sylvester Stallone at that time and how everyone thought he was losing his mind. Instead, I want to wade into the cool, gentle waters of Joe Straw. What's he really about? Is there a Mrs. Straw? I do not know, but I do know this. He started as the accountant for Keenan Films, and today he is a director and producer. He's involved in the theater scene in L.A., and he's helped many talented people get to places where they can be seen. And seriously, how many accountants become directors? Joe Straw is the first I've ever heard of, so good on you, Joe Straw. And there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone Connection. Now, Nuclear Man and Lenny, let's review Superman 4 so that we may rewatch Superman 4 again, but this time with the commentary track.
Yeah, only hairdressers and window dressers should get to be directors and producers.
As always. By the way, the Nerd Talk Now, I did drop a little John Peters action just recently, so check that out. All right.
That's how powerful Barbra Streisand is.
Oh, man, she looks like a mutant today, doesn't she? All right, let's get down to it. How do we rate this thing? We don't have stars. We don't have letters. We got none of that jazz. We have our patented HMP Robin rating system. If you'd like to see what that is and join us down there in the fun times, go to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there on the top of the screen so you know how it all breaks down. Bruce, where does Superman 4 Quest for Peace fall on the HMP system for you, sir?
Is there any way this isn't a Jason Todd? Because seriously, Adam, there aren't enough friends and adult beverages in the world to make this fun for me. This is bad. And, you know, maybe it goes into the so bad it's good, but I think it's in the so bad that it makes you think, no, it's still not good. But the trivia is better than the movie for me. It's something that just doesn't really have any redemption for me. I don't know. I guess Hackman does a good job. I'm not as big of a fan of Lenny Luthor as you are, Adam. I just got to go with Jason Todd on this one.
Fair enough. Keenan, what do you got?
Bruce Leslie, you're a fool. I love this movie. I love it so much. It's so entertaining. It's one of those movies that I could totally have on in the background while I'm doing other things, look up every so often and go, oh, yeah, forgot about that part. Go back to what I'm doing. I love this movie. To me, this movie is a very high Jason Todd. No, sorry. Damian Wayne. A very high Damian Wayne.
When you said very high Jason Todd, I thought, wow, we're arguing over that.
No. It is very high Damian Wayne for me.
You're absolutely wrong. I only have a smidge above you.
I love this movie. I love Superman 3. I love the Incredible Hulk movies. I love the Peter Parker Spider-Man movies from the 70s. That is my jam right there. Like that line, like those bad versions of those movies, that is exactly what I am all about all day long.
I prefer Nick Fury.
Of course you do. All right, so let me do this. For me, like I said, this is a movie. I think I've seen this Superman movie probably more than any of the other Superman movies, just because it was something that we had on VHS, and it's not great, but it's not. It's bad, but it is that bad that you can kind of laugh at it and have some fun with it. And I certainly did this go around. Like I said, I don't think I'd seen it since I was probably like 12, 13. And I didn't. It was funny how much I actually remembered, and like from like lines to just how it all works. And as stupid and terrible as it is, I got to go Stephanie Brown on it. It's not. It's enough of a time where I can recommend it if you're into this kind of just cheesy silliness and stuff, and very much of the era with which it was, taking place for sure. If you find big giant shoulder pads on ladies sexy, this is your kind of flick, boy. Let me tell you, as long as my ladies look like linebackers, that's what I like about them. You know,
I split my time equally between Superman 4 and that lingerie football league.
That's where the classy ladies come from. All right, well, that is it, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the patrons who helped fund this program. Again, this is your month and everything. Next week, we are going to actually go through and give one of you fine people that's remaining in this hat the glorious, I'm going to call it a responsibility for programming this here program. So,
and don't forget to mention what movie we're reviewing next week.
I'm going into it right now. Gee,
don't forget about it, Portrais. Don't forget.
Captain Underpants.
Captain Underpants, it is. But no, we are going to be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I know so little about it. I don't know the soundtrack. I'm so excited for what I don't know.
Oh,
it's
that's
just
lovely.
Glorious. Super excited for all that kind of stuff. And so we'll definitely be doing that big show. And guess what, kids? Next week, not only is it going to be, continuing a Patreon month, not only is it going to be Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it'll also be 3 full years of HMP. That's how long.
That is incredible.
That's how long we've been doing this. It's kind of crazy.
This dumb idea has lasted 3 years.
Pretty impressive.
Unbelievable. I think
we've officially lasted longer than the original lineup of Oasis.
That's true. This is true. But thank you guys so much for listening. Join us back here next week for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Bruce, in the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
Chubby Wizard still going strong. We got a bunch of TV shows coming back from like their third hiatus of the year and going into the finale. So we got a lot to talk about on Chubby Wizard. Dragging in the Needles, my book. Just changed a few things around with the way it's set up on Amazon. So now people who subscribe to Kindle Unlimited can read Dragging in the Needles at no cost. So I'm trying to make as many people as possible able to see it if they want to.
Very good.
And he's got another one in the hopper not too awful long, kids.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from Audible before I make the big announcement on that one.
He's doing big. Stuff in the works. I don't know how he does it, but anyways. Sean, what do you got?
You can find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean, and I've got my new podcast coming out called Was That Actually Mark Pillow? Each week we talk about whether or not the man who befriended me when I was a young boy was actually Mark Pillow or just some homeless drifter wearing a wig.
It also will at least run for 3 years.
Yes.
At least.
Yes.
Bare minimum. And, of course, you can always check us out, Hero Movie Podcast, HeroMoviePodcast.com, and Nerd Talk Now is out yet again. And I'm doing shorter videos, and still the audio version is there, but, you're going to get a little bit more value in the video and stuff like that. So check us out on YouTube or Facebook.com/Nerd Talk Now for all the links and all that kind of good stuff and all that, man. All right, that is it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Join us back here next week for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Hey, Marty and Evie, we talked about Superman 4 for almost over an hour and 15 minutes long. That's a record.